The earth groaned. No, it wasn't the wind. Elder Anya felt the icy vibration climb through her bones, an omen of death that deafness could not silence. 7 colossal white shadows, each a heap of muscle and hunger, emerged from the blizzard, sniffing out the village's only sustenance. The ice beneath her feet cracked under the approaching invisible weight. And what she would do now, in this abyss of 71 degrees, would define everyone's survival. Anya didn't hesitate. Her aged body, though strong as wind-twisted oak, moved with surprising agility for her many winters. There was no room for fear, only for the icy urgency that squeezed her chest. The village slept, oblivious to the colossal danger approaching. She felt every heavy thud of the bear's paws on the ground. A symphony of threat that resonated in her bones, clearer than any sound. The snow, once a protective blanket, now seemed a silent accomplice to the predators. Her eyes, accustomed to the perpetual gloom of the long Yakutian winters, swept the landscape. The ice structure, where the village's provisions were carefully stored, seemed a beacon of hope and vulnerability under the pale moonlight. It was there the bears were headed, guided by their keen scent and relentless hunger. Anya knew that panic would be death. A scream, a false move, and the bears, with their brutal intelligence, would perceive easy prey. The survival of every soul in those wooden and ice cabins depended on her stillness, her cunning. With determination etched into every line of her time-worn face, Anya began. Her gloved fingers, despite the excruciating cold, worked with precision. First, she gathered dry branches and frozen moss, materials that, with a little resin and the right friction, could ignite. Her plan was an ancestral dance with danger, a choreography of smoke and vibrations. She moved stealthily, avoiding patches of fresh snow that would betray her steps. Every movement was calculated, every breath an effort not to disturb the deadly stillness. The bears were closer now. Anya felt the earth tremble with greater intensity, a deep vibration that alerted her to the imminence of confrontation. She could almost visualize the massive outlines of the beasts, their snouts sniffing the air, their powerful bodies slowly advancing. The village, a cluster of dormant life, remained vulnerable. The image of her grandchildren sleeping in their fur beds gave her a new surge of courage, a warmth that combated the piercing cold. She chose the first strategic point. Crouching, protected by a snowdrift, and with steady hands, she began to light the first fire, not to warm, but to deceive. The smoke would be a veil, the heat a mirage. As the flames licked the wood, Anya picked up a polished mammoth bone, which she always carried with her, and began to tap rhythmically on the ice. It wasn't a sound she could hear, but the vibrations that spread through the ground. She felt them. Controlled pulses, designed to guide, to confuse. The largest of the bears, an even more imposing giant than the others, stopped. Anya felt its hesitation, a pause in the progression of vibrations that the earth transmitted to her. It raised its massive head, sniffing the icy air with curiosity, and Anya knew it smelled the smoke, but didn't understand its artificial origin. The strategy was working, a breath of hope in the biting cold. She continued, moving to the next point, leaving the first fire to burn, a deceptive beacon in the darkness. The plan was to divert the bears to the most dangerous trail, away from the village's vital treasure, a treacherous path only she knew. With each step, Anya felt the weight of her people's history, the wisdom of generations guiding her hands and her heart, in a silent struggle for the life and future of Oymyakon. Anya continued her silent journey, the cold biting at her exposed skin, but her mind was focused, sharp as an ice blade. She moved to the second strategic point, a location chosen with ancestral wisdom, knowledge acquired over decades of life in Yakutia. Under a snowdrift that offered minimal cover, she repeated the ritual. Her fingers, though numb, lit another fire. The smoke, dense and grayish, rose slowly into the icy air. mingling with the darkness and creating an illusion of human presence where there was none. The heat, too weak to warm, was strong enough to be detected by the bear's sensitive snouts, which were dangerously close. As the second fire crackled, Anya resumed her tapping on the ice. The mammoth bone, heavy and smooth, struck with a calculated rhythm, sending vibratory waves through the frozen ground. She felt each pulse reverberate, an extension of her own will, guiding the beasts like an invisible shepherd. With each tap, she imagined the bears, their massive bodies, their heavy steps, being subtly diverted from their original course. The tension was palpable, an invisible weight in the thin air. The bears, she felt, were approaching the trail she had laid out for them, a path that became increasingly treacherous, with hidden crevices and dangerous slopes. The earth groaned under their steps, and Anya felt the growing intensity of the vibrations, a tactile map of the danger moving towards her. She could distinguish the difference in their steps, the hesitation of some, the curiosity of others. But the largest, the one leading the group, seemed more cunning. Its vibrations transmitted a brutal intelligence, a growing distrust. Anya felt a shiver that didn't come from the cold. The largest bear stopped again, not with the curiosity of before, but with a longer, more inquisitive pause. It wasn't just sniffing the smoke, it was processing the anomaly. The vibrations it emitted were different, more focused, as if it were trying to unravel the mystery Anya was weaving. Its eyes, she imagined, would be sweeping the darkness, trying to penetrate the veil of smoke and snow, seeking the truth behind the ruse. With a heavy heart but unwavering determination, Anya moved to the third strategic point. Time was running out. She needed to accelerate the process, solidify the illusion before the predator's intelligence overcame her trick. More branches, more moss, the flame dancing in the darkness. The fires now formed a semicircle, a labyrinth of heat and smoke that should confuse the bears, directing them towards the natural trap she had chosen. The tapping on the ice intensified, a more urgent rhythm. Anya felt the bear's proximity, the icy breath of death hovering. The largest bear, however, seemed to perceive the ruse completely. The vibrations it sent were no longer of curiosity, but of contained fury, an emerging understanding of the deception. It was deviating from the path, charging directly towards the scent of the provisions, towards Anya. She felt a deep shock. The plan was at risk, and time was scarce. The giant approached with alarming speed, its vibrations a war drum directed at the ice structure. She needed to act, and fast. Her eyes found the structure of ice blocks she had prepared, a fragile yet strategically positioned barrier. The colossal creature's shockwave hit her, a violent tremor in the ground. With a precise and desperate movement, Anya pushed the ice blocks. The structure collapsed with a silent crash for her, but one that resonated in powerful vibrations, blocking the passage and startling the predator. The bear, momentarily disoriented, retreated. The village still slept, oblivious to the confrontation that had just decided its fate. The giant bear's retreat was a relief Anya felt more deeply in her bones than in her mind. The colossal creature's shockwave dissipated, replaced by a vibration of confusion and perhaps primitive respect for the unexpected barrier. The animal, with its keen intelligence, had been momentarily outsmarted by a simple but effective trick. It snorted, a sound Anya didn't hear but felt as an irritated tremor in the ground, before turning, its heavy paws crushing the snow as it moved away, following the trail of smoke illusions she had created. Anya couldn't relax yet. The other 6 bears, though less cunning than the leader, still represented an imminent threat. She felt their scattered movements, some still sniffing the deceptive fires, others beginning to follow their leader's trail. With a silent sigh, which turned to vapor in the icy air, she picked up the mammoth bone again. Her hands were numb, her muscles screamed with fatigue, but the image of her grandchildren's sleeping faces gave her a new surge of strength. She needed to ensure all predators were far, far away. The rhythmic tapping resumed, softer now, more like a vibrating whisper, guiding the animals with a delicacy that contrasted with the brute force of her previous feat. She moved slowly, almost crawling, to a higher point, from where she could feel the gradual dispersion of the bear's vibrations. The cold was relentless, penetrating her fur clothes, but Anya ignored it. Her mind was completely absorbed in the task. Her senses sharpened as never before, every fiber of her being connected to the frozen earth. Hours dragged on, or perhaps it was just minutes in the eternity of that night. Anya didn't know. Time had lost its meaning. She just tapped, felt, and waited. Slowly the bear's vibrations grew weaker, more distant, until finally only the silence of the Yakutian night remained, which for her was the absence of any anomalous tremor. The danger had passed. The village was safe. When the first pale rays of the sun began to tint the horizon a faint pink, Anya was still there, sitting in the snow, exhausted, but with a deep peace in her heart. Her hands trembled slightly as she brought them to her time-worn face, feeling the roughness of her cold skin. A solitary tear ran down her cheek, not of sadness, but of overwhelming relief and silent gratitude for the life she had protected. She watched the village awaken. Smoke began to rise from the cabin's chimneys, small signs of life amidst the vast desert of ice. Small children, wrapped in furs, came out to play in the snow, their laughter muffled by the cold, but their joys felt by Anya as a vibration of hope. No one knew what had happened in the darkness of that night. No one would know, and that was how it should be. Ancestral wisdom, silent courage, the altruism that guided her people. These were Oymyakon's true riches, more valuable than any provision. Anya rose, her body aching, but her spirit unyielding. She walked slowly back to her cabin, ready for the new day, to continue weaving the tapestry of life in a place where resilience was the only melody. Anya pushed open the heavy fur and wooden door of her cabin, feeling the warm, familiar air embrace her. The smell of birch smoke and herbal tea, so different from the biting air outside, was a balm for her lungs. She bent down, her back protesting, to close the door carefully, a gesture that seemed to demand all her remaining strength. Her body, once driven by adrenaline and urgency, now felt the weight of each of her many winters. Her muscles, tense and sore, cried out for rest, but her spirit, however, was light and full. In the cozy gloom she saw the sleeping forms of her grandchildren, small mounds of furs and blankets, breathing softly, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded in the icy darkness. A faint smile laden with tenderness and relief formed on her cold, chapped lips. The image of them, safe and warm, was her reward, more valuable than any gold. She approached the nearest bed, where little Lena slept deeply, her angelic face framed by dark braids. Anya extended her wrinkled hand, hesitated, and then gently stroked the girl's hair, feeling its softness beneath her fingers. It was a silent touch, a renewed promise of protection. The sun, now a pale disk in the Yakutian sky, began to peek through the cracks in the cabin, painting the interior with golden and blue hues. Soon, the village would truly awaken. Anya moved to the stone stove, where the embers still glowed faintly. With slow and deliberate movements, she added more wood, watching the flames dance, a mirror of the fires she had lit outside. The water for the tea would soon bubble, a sound she couldn't hear, but felt the gentle vibration on the floor beneath her feet. While she waited, Anya sat on her fur stool, her hands resting in her lap. Her eyes scanned the cabin, every object, every fur, every utensil, telling a story of generations, of resilience. Deafness, once a barrier, was now a window to a world of deeper sensations. an unbreakable link with the earth and its secrets. She felt the vibration of life in the village, the gradual awakening, like a great heart pulsing. The connection with her people, with the land, was her strength, her purpose. One of her grandchildren, young Boris, began to stretch, yawning loudly. He opened his eyes and saw Anya sitting, her silhouette against the morning light. A wide smile lit up his childish face. He rose, wrapped in his blanket, and walked to his grandmother, snuggling up beside her. Anya felt the warmth of the small body, the scent of sleep and childhood. She enveloped her grandson in a tight embrace, conveying all her love and the stillness of her victory. Boris didn't need words to feel his grandmother's deep affection. The gesture, the serene expression on her face, spoke volumes. That embrace was her true reward, the echo of her altruism. Boris, with the innocence of childhood, didn't understand the depth of the battle his grandmother had fought, but he felt the unconditional love that emanated from her. He snuggled closer, the warmth of his small body a balm for Anya's aching bones. Lena, awakened by the movement, blinked her sleepy eyes and extended a small hand to her grandmother, a silent invitation to join the embrace. Anya smiled, a smile that reached her wrinkled eyes and pulled her granddaughter close too, feeling the fullness of having her beloved family safe and warm. The sun now shone brighter, filtering through the small fir windows, illuminating the cabin's details. The smell of fresh bread began to mix with that of smoke coming from neighboring cabins, a clear sign that the village was, indeed, awakening. Anya felt the vibrations of hurried footsteps outside, of voices that, though inaudible to her, transmitted the energy of a new day. She rose with an effort, her knees cracking, and began to prepare breakfast. Oatmeal porridge with dried fruit and a little honey, a precious luxury in those icy lands. As she stirred the porridge in the iron pot on the stove, Anya watched her grandchildren play silently on the floor, building small houses with wooden blocks. The simplicity of the scene was a vivid and profound reminder of what she had protected. Each muffled laugh, each gentle movement was a melody that resonated in her heart. She thought of the bears, the hungry giants that had come so close, and how the village's life had hung by a thread, an invisible thread woven by her cunning and courage. No one in the village, except her, carried the weight of that night, and she preferred it that way. The burden was hers, the safety, everyone's. Later, while the village was already bustling with morning activities, men leaving for the hunt or to check traps, women attending to household chores and children, Anya went out to fetch water from the communal well. The air was still biting, but the sun brought a faint promise of warmth. She walked slowly, feeling every unevenness of the frozen ground beneath her fur boots. As she passed the ice structure of the provisions, she paused for an instant. The blocks she had knocked down were back in place, precisely stacked by unknown hands, perhaps by the provisions guardian who would make his morning rounds. No one would notice the difference except her. An almost imperceptible smile appeared on her lips. At the well, some women were already gathered, conversing in low voices, their faces rosy from the cold. They greeted her with respectful nods, and Anya returned with a nod of her head. She felt the vibration of their conversations, the hum of community life, and this filled her with a sense of belonging. One of the women, young Kyra, whose husband had left for a long hunt, approached Anya. Her eyes, though tired, shone with a silent concern. "Elder Anya," Kyra said, her voice soft, "you look exhausted. Did you have a difficult night?" Anya merely smiled, an enigmatic smile that didn't reveal the truth, but conveyed a deep peace. She couldn't explain the tremors of the earth, the colossal bears, or the silent dance she had waged with danger, but she could offer something simpler, something Kyra, with her young family, needed. She gently touched Kyra's arm, her eyes transmitting a message of strength and hope. "The night was long, my daughter," Anya replied, her voice hoarse but firm. But dawn always brings new strength, and the certainty that our village is truly protected. Kyra looked at Anya, and although she didn't fully understand the words, she felt the serenity and wisdom that emanated from the elder. A slight nod of the head, a tacit understanding between generations, the human connection, stronger than the cold, deeper than the silence. Anya filled her buckets with water, feeling the familiar weight, and began the walk back to her cabin, her heart light, her soul at peace. Life in Oymyakon, harsh and relentless, would continue, sustained by the silent courage of its ancestors and the unwavering resilience of its people. And she, Anya, was a vital part of that tapestry, a silent guardian of its future. Anya filled her buckets with water, feeling the familiar weight, and began the walk back to her cabin, her heart light, her soul at peace. Life in Oymyakon, harsh and relentless, would continue, sustained by the silent courage of its ancestors and the unwavering resilience of its people. And she, Anya, was a vital part of that tapestry, a silent guardian of its future. Upon reaching her cabin, the warm steam escaping from the crack in the door was a welcoming invitation. She placed the buckets on the packed earth floor, the muffled sound of the frozen water settling. Her grandchildren, Boris and Lena, were still playing on the floor, absorbed in their world of wooden blocks and imagination. Anya watched them for a moment, a soft smile on her lips, feeling the vibration of their innocent joy. The peace of that home, the safety of her family, was what drove her. She sat on her stool, her wrinkled hands resting in her lap, her body tired, but her mind serene. The pale morning sun of Yakutia now bathed the cabin in a golden light, revealing the dust dancing in the air and the intricate patterns on the furs lining the walls. It was a new day, and life, in its simple and challenging routine, seemed to have resumed its normal course. However, the morning's stillness was suddenly broken. Anya felt the vibrations of hurried, heavy footsteps approaching her cabin, different from the light steps of children or the usual ones of hunters. There was an urgency, an anxiety in the way the ground trembled. The door opened abruptly, and young Kyra, the same woman Anya had met at the well, entered, her usually calm face now contorted in an expression of panic. Her eyes were wide, and she gestured frantically, though Anya couldn't hear her words. "Elder Anya!" Kyra exclaimed, her voice choked, and Anya felt the shockwave of the young woman's concern. "It's the ice cave, the main one, the one we use for water. It's blocked, and there are bear tracks everywhere." Anya felt a shiver run down her spine, more intense than the cold outside. The ice cave. The village's main source of drinking water, a sacred, hidden and hard-to-reach place, known only to the most experienced. It was there she had guided the bears, to the dangerous trail only she knew. The trail that led to the cave. Kyra's vibrations, the tremor in her hands, the urgency in her gaze, all translated into a painful truth. Her act of heroism, her cunning to save the provisions, had inadvertently created a new and terrible threat. The bears, in their disoriented passage, had caused a partial collapse at the cave's entrance, blocking access and perhaps contaminating the water. Boris and Lena, feeling the tension in the air, stopped playing and looked at their grandmother with curious, slightly frightened eyes. Anya felt the weight of Kyra's gaze, who awaited an answer, a solution. The peace that had filled her heart moments before dissolved, replaced by a wave of guilt and renewed determination. She had protected the food, but now the water, the very essence of life, was at risk. The village wouldn't survive long without access to that vital source, especially with winter deepening. Overcoming was not a single event, but a continuous journey. And the path ahead seemed even more treacherous than the night before. Anya rose, her eyes fixed on Kyra's, a silent promise that, once again, she would do what was necessary, Anya rose, her eyes fixed on Kyra's, a silent promise that, once again, she would do what was necessary. Guilt was an icy weight in her chest, but determination warmed her from within. She had diverted the bears, yes, but now her village's source of life was in danger because of her actions. Boris and Lena, still on the floor, looked at her with wide, curious eyes, and the image of their innocent faces reinforced her resolve. Kyra, perceiving the elder's resolute stillness, took a step forward. "Elder, it's dangerous. The bears might be nearby, and the cave. It's a treacherous place, even without a collapse." Her voice, though inaudible to Anya, conveyed a mix of fear and respect, and Anya felt the vibration of her genuine concern. Anya touched Kyra's shoulder, a firm and reassuring gesture. Her eyes, deep and wise, communicated more than words could. "I must go," she gestured slowly, pointing to the door and then to the ground, indicating the cave's direction. "The water, our life." Kyra hesitated, but Anya's silent authority was undeniable. I'll go with you," Kyra offered, her voice lower now but full of courage. "I can't let you go alone. My husband is away, but I'm strong. I can help." Anya shook her head, a slight smile on her lips. Kyra's offer was a balm to her soul, a reminder of the connection that united her people. But the cave was a labyrinth of ice and rock, and the presence of another person could be a risk. "Stay with the children," Anya gestured, indicating Boris and Lena, "and prepare the tea. I will return." With a last look at her grandchildren, who now approached her, sensing the tension, Anya picked up her wooden staff, a gift from her late husband, and an oil lamp. The staff was more than a support. It was an extension of her senses, capable of transmitting ground vibrations with even greater clarity. She opened the door and stepped out into the biting cold, the wind howling like a lament. The path to the ice cave was steep and slippery, winding through snow-covered rock formations and ice-twisted trees. Anya walked with caution, her staff ahead, feeling every inch of the terrain. With each step, she focused on the vibrations, searching for any sign of bears, any anomaly in the familiar rhythm of the frozen earth. The air was so dense it felt like it would crack when she breathed, but Anya was accustomed to it. Her body was a living map of Yakutia, each scar a story of overcoming. She felt the presence of the mountain, the colossal mass of rock and ice that housed the cave like a sleeping giant. With each turn, Anya's anxiety grew. The guilt for inadvertently putting the village at risk was a heavy burden, but the need to correct her mistake propelled her. Water was more than a necessity. It was the soul of Oymyakon. Without it, life would slowly extinguish, like a fire without wood. Finally, after what seemed an eternity, Anya reached the cave entrance. The scene before her tightened her heart. Large blocks of ice and rock had collapsed, forming an impassable barrier. Bear tracks were evident everywhere. Deep scratches in the ice, enormous paw prints in the fresh snow, and a strong, wild scent that, though she couldn't smell it, the vibrations in the air and the clear sight of the evidence confirmed. The collapse seemed to have been caused not only by the bear's passage, but also by the natural fragility of the structure, aggravated by the beast's weight. Anya approached the barrier, touching the ice with the tip of her staff. The vibrations were confused, a tangle of echoes indicating the structure's instability. She knew that any wrong move could cause a new collapse, perhaps even trap her inside, but the sight of the water, crystalline and vital, trickling through a small crack at the base of the barrier, was a reminder of what was at stake. She knelt, feeling the cold penetrate her clothes. The lamp revealed the extent of the blockage, a wall of ice and rock that seemed impenetrable. But Anya was not one to give up. Her wrinkled fingers traced the contours of the ice, searching for a weak point, a way to begin. The wisdom of her ancestors, the experience of decades living in harmony with relentless nature, whispered in her mind. She needed to find a solution, and fast. Her village's life depended on it. Overcoming, she knew, required not only strength, but intelligence and an unwavering faith in the human spirit. Anya felt the biting cold of the ice through her fur gloves, even as her wrinkled fingers traced the fissures and protrusions of the barrier. The staff, a faithful extension of her will, tapped gently at different points, and the vibrations that returned were confused, a chorus of instability. It wasn't just a pile of ice and rock blocking the passage. It was a living structure, pulsing with the threat of a new collapse. She felt the fragility, the way the ice, once solid, now seemed to have been struck by a colossal force, creating internal tensions that could release at any moment. Her eyes scanned the darkness of the cave beyond the barrier, where the water continued to trickle. A sound she didn't hear, but felt the promise of life. The sight of that water, so close yet so inaccessible, was a torment. The memory of Kyra's face, contorted in panic, and Boris and Lena's curious eyes etched itself into her mind, reinforcing the urgency. The village couldn't wait. Anya closed her eyes for an instant, breathing deeply the icy air that seemed to burn her lungs. In her mind, she visualized the mountain, the way the ice formed, how the rock fit together. She remembered the stories told by her grandmother about how the ancient Yakuts dug their shelters in the ice, understanding the delicacy and strength of this element. She couldn't use brute force. She would need cunning, a silent dance with the mountain itself. She opened her eyes, a new determination shining in them. With her staff, she began to test the ice again, but this time with a different intention. She wasn't just looking for instability, but for points of balance, lines of force that could be manipulated. She felt a small protuberance, a rock outcrop covered by a thin layer of ice, which seemed to be a crucial anchor point. If she carefully removed the ice around it, perhaps she could relieve pressure elsewhere. The lamp flickered, casting dancing shadows that transformed the cave's interior into a realm of mystery and danger. Anya began to work, not with heavy tools, but with the tip of her staff and, at times, with her bare hands, scraping the ice with a patience only Yakutia's winters could forge. Every movement was deliberate, every scrape a whisper to the mountain. She felt the vibration of the ice beneath her fingers, the way it responded to her touch, as if it were a living being. Suddenly, a loud, dry crack echoed through the cave, a sound Anya didn't hear, but felt the shockwave reverberate through the ice and rock, hitting her with the force of a blow. The ground trembled violently, and a cascade of small ice fragments and frozen dust fell from the ceiling, covering her. She flinched, protecting her head with her arms, the staff falling from her hands. The lamp, for an instant, threatened to go out, but managed to stay lit, though its light was even weaker. Anya's heart pounded erratically, not from fear, but from a cold adrenaline. When the tremor ceased, Anya slowly opened her eyes. The ice barrier seemed even more imposing, but she noticed a change. A larger crack had opened in one of the blocks, revealing a more intense gleam of water trickling from behind. The path was more dangerous, yes, but also more visible. Nature, in its fury, had inadvertently shown a shortcut. She picked up the staff, her hands trembling slightly, but her eyes fixed on the crack. Overcoming was not about avoiding danger, but about finding opportunity within it. She needed to be even more careful, even more precise. The village waited, the water waited, and Anya, the silent guardian, would not retreat. Anya fixed her eyes on the crack that had opened, a dark tear in the ice wall that revealed a more intense gleam of water from behind. The mountain had spoken, and Anya, with her ancestral wisdom, understood the message. It was not an invitation to recklessness, but an indication of a more direct, albeit dangerous path. The guilt for having led the bears to this sacred place still weighed, but the need to act was greater. The cave's cold intensified, each breath of icy air penetrating deep into her lungs. The lamp, with its flickering flame, seemed to fight against the growing darkness, a mirror of her struggle. With the staff firmly in her hands, Anya began to explore the crack. The vibrations were chaotic, a tangle of echoes indicating the extreme instability of the surrounding ice and rock. The cave seemed alive, breathing and trembling under the weight of its existence. She moved with calculated slowness, every muscle tense, anticipating the next movement, the crack, the collapse. Her eyes, accustomed to the gloom, searched for patterns in the ice, the lines of strength and weakness that nature had sculpted. She remembered the lessons from her grandfather. To master nature, one had to understand and respect it. Anya began to scrape the ice around the crack, not with force, but with surgical precision. She felt the density of the ice, the way it clung to the rock, the tension that held it together. Small fragments detached, falling with a soft clink on the frozen ground. With each piece removed, she felt a slight change in the vibrations, as if the mountain was sighing. Her fingers, though numb from the cold, maintained acute sensitivity, guiding the staff with impressive dexterity. The image of Boris and Lena playing in the cabin came to her mind, a reminder of the warmth and life she fought to protect. Time seemed to stretch and shrink simultaneously. Hours could have passed, or just minutes. The physical effort was immense, but Anya's mind was clear, focused solely on the task ahead. She felt exhaustion seep into her bones, but determination was a fire burning in her chest, warming her from within. The crack slowly widened, revealing more of the damp darkness of the inner cave. The water, now closer, seemed to call to her, its presence a relief for her imaginary thirst. But the danger also increased. With each advance, the structure seemed more precarious, and Anya knew she was approaching a critical point. Suddenly, a new and strong vibration ran through the ground, more intense than the previous ones. It wasn't a tremor of collapse, but something different, something Anya recognized with a shiver. It was the sound of heavy footsteps, of something large moving outside, at the entrance. The bears. They had returned. Anya's heart pounded, a dull drum in her chest. She stopped, the staff suspended in the air, her senses on high alert. She felt the earth vibrate beneath her feet, the slow and powerful approach of the creatures. The wild scent, though she couldn't smell it, seemed to permeate the icy air, an invisible yet palpable threat. The lamp, as if sensing the imminent danger, began to fail, its flame diminishing to an almost imperceptible thread of light. Darkness swallowed the cave, leaving Anya in total silence and near absolute gloom. She was alone, surrounded by ice, by the threat of the bears, and by the deepening darkness. The crack in the barrier, which once represented hope, now seemed a trap. She needed to act, and fast. The village's life, the water, everything depended on her next decision. Overcoming was not just about strength, but about the ability to maintain calm in the eye of the storm, to find a way when all others seemed closed. Anya felt the ice yield even more, but the sound of the bears outside was a cruel reminder that time was running out. Anya felt the ice yield even more, but the sound of the bears outside was a cruel reminder that time was running out. The darkness was almost total, and the lamp was dying, a small star fading in the vast icy sky of the cave. The bear's vibrations became stronger, more urgent, a heavy, dragging rhythm that resonated in her bones. She could feel the earth tremble beneath her feet. The proximity of those colossal beasts. There was no time for fear, only for action. The image of Boris and Lena, their innocent faces, Kyra's hope, all this propelled her. She knew that confronting the bears was suicide, and to flee now would mean abandoning the water source, condemning the village. Her eyes, accustomed to the gloom, scanned the crack she had opened, and then the barrier of ice and rock that still blocked the main passage. The structure's instability was a danger, but also a tool. The mountain, she realized, was breathing with her, offering silent clues. With a quick movement, Anya picked up her staff, which had fallen, and began to tap the ice at strategic points near the crack. These were not random taps, but an ancestral rhythm, a silent melody that resonated through the ice. She didn't hear the sound, but felt the vibration spread, a shockwave that she hoped would be interpreted by the bears as a warning, an imminent danger coming from the mountain itself. It was a technique her grandfather used to ward off curious animals from traps, a subtle manipulation of the environment. The bear's vibrations for an instant hesitated. A tense silence hung, which Anya felt as a pause in the world's breath. But then, the most intense vibration of all, that of the largest bear, the leader, resumed, stronger, more determined, coming directly towards the cave entrance. He had perceived the ruse. The earth trembled with the force of his approach. Anya felt panic try to set in, but she pushed it away. There was no room for it. She needed a final, desperate act. Her eyes fixed on a large, loose block of ice, precariously balanced above the crack she was opening. It was the most unstable point, the most dangerous, but also the most promising. If she could bring it down, not to block the water, but to create a temporary obstacle at the entrance, perhaps she could scare the bears and buy time. With all her strength, Anya propelled herself upward, using the staff as a lever against the ice block. Her muscles screamed in protest, but adrenaline propelled her. She felt the vibration of the ice cracking, the rock groaning. The entire cave seemed to groan. The lamp, in its last gasp, extinguished completely, plunging her into absolute darkness. At that exact moment, the shockwave of the giant bear, which was now at the very entrance of the cave, hit her. She felt the air move, the pressure of the colossal creature just meters away. Her senses were on high alert. With one last effort, she pushed the staff with all her soul. A deafening roar, which Anya felt as an earthquake, exploded in the cave. The ice block detached, falling with tremendous force, not over the water crack, but at the main entrance where the bear was. The earth trembled violently, and a cloud of ice dust and snow exploded, filling the space. Anya was thrown backward, hit by ice fragments, but managed to protect herself, falling to her knees. The bear's vibrations, once so threatening, were now confused, disoriented, and then began to retreat. She felt the weight of the footsteps diminish, the urgency transform into hesitation, and finally into retreat. They had been scared, not injured, but enough to give up on the cave. Anya remained kneeling in the darkness, her heart pounding, but her breathing calming. She had succeeded. The bears had dispersed. The cave was safe, for now. But the darkness was deep, and the task of reaching the water was still incomplete. Relief was immense, but exhaustion dominated her. She felt the cold penetrate even deeper, and the solitude of the cave enveloped her. Overcoming was a constant battle, and this victory, though crucial, was only part of the journey. The village still waited for its water. Anya remained kneeling in the darkness, her heart pounding, but her breathing calming. She had succeeded. The bears had dispersed. The cave was safe, for now. But the darkness was deep, and the task of reaching the water was still incomplete. Relief was immense, but exhaustion dominated her. She felt the cold penetrate even deeper, and the solitude of the cave enveloped her. Overcoming was a constant battle, and this victory, though crucial, was only part of the journey. The village still waited for its water. Slowly, Anya raised her head, feeling the ice beneath her wrinkled hands. The darkness was total, dense, but her other senses, sharpened by deafness, guided her. She could feel the air temperature subtly changing, indicating the crack that led to the water. The damp scent of ice and rock was stronger near the opening. Her fingers fumbled on the ground, searching for the staff that had fallen. When she found it, the familiarity of the touch brought a small comfort. She rose with difficulty, every muscle protesting. Her body ached, but her mind was clear. The bears were gone, but the threat of cold and thirst remained. Guilt, which had previously driven her with urgency, now mingled with a deep gratitude for having protected her village. She was the guardian, and her mission was not yet over. With the staff, she began to feel her way back to the crack. There was no light, but the memory of each fissure, each protuberance in the ice, was etched in her mind. She felt the vibrations of the ice beneath her feet, the way the cave's structure responded to each touch of the staff. It was as if the mountain itself was whispering secrets, guiding her through the darkness. Anya approached the crack, feeling the air more humid and the cold more intense. The water, she knew, was there, pulsing with the promise of life. She knelt again, this time with a new determination. It was no longer a struggle against time and bears, but a silent battle against rock and ice, a dance with nature itself to release its treasure. With bare hands, despite the biting cold, she began to scrape the ice around the crack. The staff was too large for the delicate work that needed to be done. Her wrinkled fingers, calloused by decades of work and harsh winters, were now her most precise tools. She felt the texture of the ice, the resistance of the rock, the way fragments detached. Each movement was an act of faith, of trust in her own wisdom. The image of Kyra, with her eyes full of concern, and the innocence of Boris and Lena, who trusted her to bring the water, were a warmth in her heart. The village, with its wooden cabins and flickering fires, depended on her. Water was not just for drinking, it was for life, for livestock, for furs, for the very spirit of YAKUT. Slowly, the crack began to yield. Small streams of cold water trickled through her fingers, an icy blessing that filled her with deep joy. She was opening the way. It wasn't a tunnel large enough for a person to pass through, but it was enough to fill the containers. She continued, removing more and more ice, until the opening was wide enough for the water to flow freely. Anya felt the water gush into her hands, pure and crystalline, the essence of life. She picked up one of the empty containers she had brought and filled it, feeling the weight of hope. The mission was accomplished. The village would have its water. With the container full, Anya rose, exhaustion still present, but now mingled with a sense of peace and triumph. She had faced the darkness, the cold, the bears, and the mountain itself, and had prevailed. Overcoming was not just about physical strength, but about the resilience of the spirit, ancestral wisdom, and unwavering love for her community. She began to feel her way back to the cave exit, guided by the ground vibrations and memory. The cold was still intense, but the weight of the container in her hands was a constant reminder of her victory. The light of dawn, she knew, was waiting for her outside, and with it, the reunion with her village. Hope, like the water she now carried, flowed freely in her heart. The village of YAKUT, thanks to its silent guardian, would continue to live. The village of YAKUT, thanks to its silent guardian, would continue to live. With the water container carefully balanced in one hand and the staff in the other, Anya began her slow and painful journey back to the cave exit. Each step was an effort, every muscle ached, but the lightness in her heart was a balm for her exhausted body. The darkness was still total, but it no longer frightened her. Now, it was a familiar veil that her sharpened senses easily pierced. She felt the cold air current that indicated the exit, a breath of hope that intensified with every meter. The ground vibrations, once chaotic, were now a map, guiding her through the ice galleries. She fumbled along the walls, feeling the fissures and protrusions that memory and touch had etched into her mind. The scent of frozen earth and fresh snow, mixed with the damp aroma of the cave, announced the proximity of the outside world. She thought of Kyra, the concern in her eyes, and the silent joy of Boris and Lena upon seeing the water. It wasn't just water she carried. It was the promise of a new day, the continuity of life for her people. The previous guilt had dissolved, replaced by a deep sense of duty fulfilled and unconditional love for her community. Finally, after what seemed an eternity, Anya felt a change in the air, a cold but invigorating breeze. She looked up and through a narrow opening caught a glimpse of a pale grey glow. Dawn was breaking. With one last effort, she dragged herself out of the cave, her body trembling but her spirit unbroken. The world outside was a spectacle of white and blue, the sun still hidden, but its light already painting the horizon in soft hues. The cold was biting, but Anya barely felt it. Her eyes swept the landscape, searching for the signs of the village. The smoke from the chimneys, though invisible to her, was a vibration in the air, a sign of life and warmth. As she approached the first cabins, Anya's heart beat to a different rhythm, a melody of anticipation and relief. Kyra, who was at the cabin entrance sweeping the snow, saw Anya's bent figure emerge from the icy mist. Her eyes widened and she ran, the snow crunching under her feet. "Anya, are you all right?" Kyra exclaimed, her words lost in the icy wind, but the concern on her face was clear. She reached Anya, her arms enveloping the elder in a tight embrace. Anya felt the warmth of the young body, the vibration of Kyra's relief, and a soft smile formed on her lips. Kyra stepped back, noticing the container in Anya's hands. Her eyes filled with silent tears upon seeing the crystalline water. "The water! You did it!" she whispered, her voice choked. She took the container with reverence, as if it were the most precious treasure. Soon other villagers began to emerge from their cabins, drawn by the commotion. Boris and Lena, still sleepy, ran to Anya, hugging her legs. Anya bent down, feeling the small vibration of their silent laughter, and stroked their hair. The entire village gathered, their faces marked by exhaustion and concern, but now lit by renewed hope. Water was distributed, drop by drop, a symbol of the life that had been rescued. Anya watched the faces, feeling the gratitude and relief that emanated from them. There was no need for words. The connection between them, forged by adversity and love, was stronger than any sound. On that icy dawn, Anya, the silent guardian of Oymyakon, knew that her mission was accomplished. True strength lay not in hearing or sight, but in the resilience of the human spirit, ancestral wisdom, and unwavering love for her community. Life would continue, a testament to the capacity for overcoming, to the faith and unbreakable hope that burned in the heart of each of them. Warming the icy heart of Yakutia, life would continue, a testament to the capacity for overcoming, to the faith and unbreakable hope that burned in the heart of each of them, warming the icy heart of Yakutia. The dawn's light, now full, bathed the village in shades of pink and gold, revealing the austere beauty of the frozen landscape. The air, though still biting, felt lighter, purified by the night's ordeal. Kyra, with the water container in her hands, felt the weight of responsibility and gratitude. She carried it to the main cabin, where the fire crackled, and began to distribute the water, drop by drop, to those most in need. The children, Boris and Lena, were the first to drink, their eyes shining with a mix of curiosity and relief. Anya watched, feeling the small vibrations of their swallowing throats, the silent sound of life being restored. She didn't need to hear their words of thanks. She felt them in the way Kyra gently guided her to a chair near the fire, in the warm bowl of broth offered to her, in the gentle touch of the villagers' hands on her shoulder. The fire's warmth began to thaw her numb limbs, and the warm broth brought renewed energy. Anya closed her eyes for a moment, allowing herself to feel the deep weariness that enveloped her. But it was not a weariness of defeat, but of a battle won. The image of the bears, the darkness of the cave, the cracking ice, all seemed distant now, like an icy dream. What remained was the sense of duty fulfilled, of having protected her family, her village. The village elders approached, their faces marked by age and wisdom, but their eyes conveying deep respect. They didn't speak much, for they knew Anya wouldn't hear them. Instead, one by one, they bowed slightly, a gesture of honor that Anya felt in every fiber of her being. One of them, a man with a beard white as snow, extended his hand and touched Anya's arm, a firm, silent squeeze that spoke more than 1,000 words. It was a recognition not only of her courage, but of her wisdom, of her unique connection to the earth and its secrets. Kyra sat beside Anya, taking her wrinkled hand and holding it tenderly. "You are our strength, Anya," she whispered, even knowing she wouldn't be heard. "Our guardian." Anya opened her eyes and looked at Kyra, a soft, tired smile on her lips. She felt the vibration of Kyra's voice, the emotion that accompanied it. The connection between them was deep, a bridge built not by words, but by love and trust. Throughout the day, the village moved with new energy, a renewed sense of purpose. Water was distributed, provisions were checked and reinforced. The fires Anya had lit to ward off the bears were kept burning, no longer as a ruse, but as a symbol of vigilance and resilience. The story of the night, though wordless for Anya, would be told and retold, passed down from generation to generation, a reminder of the power of ancestral wisdom and the courage of a woman. Anya watched the village's activity, the silent hum of their life. She felt the earth beneath her feet, the vibrations of children playing, the constant rhythm of Oymyakon's heart. Overcoming, she understood, was not a single event, but a way of life, a continuous dance with Yakutia's relentless nature. And on that day, the village had danced and won, not just a battle against predators, but a reaffirmation of their very essence. Faith in life, in community, and in each person's ability to overcome the impossible had once again triumphed. Anya's wisdom, the silent guardian, ensured that Oymyakon's spirit would continue to shine, strong and unyielding, even in the icy heart of the world, a beacon of hope and resilience for future generations.